So on today's Card Academy lesson, we're going to be going over a false Hindu shuffle. Now on the Academy, we've talked about other Hindu style false shuffles. However, this one is fairly simplistic in it's just entirely a bluff. In the other ones, there's a cyclical nature to the actual movements needed in order to do the false shuffle, whereas this one is just pretty much reminiscent of what would be a false table strip shuffle. So I'm going to show you guys the actual shuffle itself, as well as some additions, some variations, and some ways that you could really dress this up. So let's get right into it and show you exactly what I'm talking about. So at its core, the shuffle just looks like this. It looks like we're taking the cards, we're mixing them in the Hindu style fashion, and of course, no card changes place in that entire shuffle. And as I mentioned before, we could actually dress this shuffle up in many ways. So let's get into it and show you exactly what we're doing. Now for this, it is fairly angle resistant. However, you might think that it's not because of the fact that we're going to be taking stacks from the bottom. Now in the dress ups that we're going to talk about later, we're going to talk about different ways to actually cut the deck. But for now, what's happening is that we're going to be holding the cards in this modified biddle grip in the right hand. So instead of holding the cards like this, we're actually holding the cards on the small end. Now what this is going to allow us to do is that with our left hand, we're just going to come in, and usually with the Hindu shuffle, we're taking packets from the top of the deck and dropping them on top just like this. However, for the false actual shuffle, what we're doing is we're just simply going to be taking cards from the bottom of the stack. Now what's interesting about this is that if you do a normal Hindu shuffle, you notice that there's no change in this bottom card. Whereas here, the illusion of the shuffle is actually done by the fact that the cards keep changing. So in this variation, we're actually seeing different cards as we're apparently running through the cards. In the original shuffle, there's just one single card that's being shown in the bottom. So this is going to add to the illusion. But all we're going to do is we're just simply going to take packets from the bottom with our fingertips. Now we're putting our fingers around the entire length of the deck, but we're only just going to take a small portion of the cards. Now in action here, we're just going to take small portions as we exhaust the rest of the deck, apparently shuffling them but really keeping them in the same order. So in tilting the cards with this angle to the participant, it actually looks like the cards are being mixed and shuffled, especially if we're having conversation with the participant and we're not looking at our hands. This is something that's going to fly by each and every single time. Now from this angle, you can see exactly what's going on. We're just taking small packets from the bottom in rapid succession until we run out of cards with the right hand. Now obviously you wouldn't want to have this angle. However, even up to here, the shuffle still looks good because it just looks like you're drawing packets of cards and you're actually genuinely mixing them. Now I've taught different variations where we take advantage of the step, and this way we're doing the exact same action. We're cutting the cards, we're stepping them like this, and now we're taking cards from the bottom of the uppermost pile, which is actually the original bottom pile. So if we do this, it's going to look like we're actually mixing through the cards. So it looks like we're shuffling through the cards this way. And when we're done, we could just take all the remaining cards, drop the ones that are left in the hand, and we have the shuffle. However, with this one, we're not doing any cut. We're just taking the cards straight up from the bottom, and it still looks great. Now, a simple variation involves generally cutting the cards first. So you're going to cut the cards in the first pile, generally cutting them. Now the remaining cards are going to be taken from the bottom, much the same as in the original technique. The only difference is that now we're actually holding a small break separating both halves. Now what this is going to allow us to do is that in the actual context of the shuffle, we're going to be able to push these cards forward, take the original lower half, which is actually the top half, and slap it on top as one last cut. So what's interesting about this particular angle is that you could start like this and then carry on the actions of the movement just like this, keeping the break. And now at the end, we're going to be able to push those cards forward, take the bottom cards, put them on top, the ones underneath the break, and give the cards a cut, and it looks very fair. So at speed, it just looks like you're giving the deck a simple shuffle and then a cut at the end, and it still keeps the deck in the exact same order. So this next technique is great if you're using a stacked deck, because all we're doing is just the equivalent of one cut. So if you're using a cyclical stack, it's just going to be the equivalent of one single cut. And all this is just doing the exact same thing we talked about previously, cutting the cards, doing the actual strip action from the bottom. The only difference is that we're not cutting the deck at the end. We're not holding any breaks. This is now one genuine cut. Now at this point, you could repeat this action as many times as you want, and all that's happening is that we're just giving the deck one single cut. So all that's happening is the equivalent of this, but with a lot of smoke. Now that works excellently even if you don't have a stack. All you need to do is just spread through the cards face up and cut the original top card to the top, and you're good to go. The deck isn't shuffled, it's just cut once. So it doesn't matter if you have a stack. The only difference with that is that now you're just going to have to go cut the original card to the top, and it's still going to be fine. Now this also works excellently for half stacks. So let's say you only have half the deck stacked and it would be the lowermost stack. Well here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with a genuine Hindu shuffle right here, and we're gonna start repositioning our body this way. So now when we actually get to around the middle of the deck is when we're gonna start with the actual stripping portion from the bottom of the deck. So that way, we start with a genuine shuffle of the top cards, and they can see that. And then by repositioning our body, we're just gonna take those cards from the bottom, and now we've only shuffled half of the deck. So the top half, which is the original bottom half that we shuffled to the top, is in the exact same order. The only thing that changed are the top half cards. Now, if you're somebody that already does the Hindu shuffle, this is a great little thing to add to your sets, even if you don't necessarily need to preserve the entire order of the deck. You could start with the Hindu shuffle, and then you could carry on into that false Hindu shuffle, and only half the deck is ever shuffled. As I mentioned earlier, you don't have to have a cyclical stack in order to take advantage of that technique where you generally cut the deck first and then get into the movement that way. So they see that stack coming off the top, and then you could shuffle off from the bottom and it looks genuine. So this one is definitely an easier variation of that cyclical false shuffle that I'm going to be leaving in the actual description section below, because that one you're grabbing piles, you're pushing this, you're pulling that, so it's a little bit complicated. This, all you're doing is you're stripping cards from the bottom. You angle it the right way so it just looks like you're shuffling. And here is a conversational bit. So you're talking to the participants, shuffling. If they look at your hand, they just see that you're shuffling the deck, and it's all good in the hood. I think I'm too white for that. But thank you guys for being members of the PigCake Magic Academy. I really hope you guys are enjoying these lessons, and I hope to see you on the next one.